Do you ever wonder why being balanced these days is such a difficult thing to do? Well, I do. And in this video, I'd like to offer you a much better alternative than balance. Something that is a bit counterintuitive, but if you bear with me, it will all make sense by the end of this video. First, I'll make the case about why balance is something that we should not aspire to build in our lives. And not that it's not useful and not valuable. Everywhere you go, you hear about maintaining a work-life balance or being balanced and so on. But for me, balance is something that requires active maintenance. It requires ongoing energy, and as a human being, it's very difficult to always stay in the middle. That's ideal, and this is where we should naturally default to by certain habits. But forcing balance as such directly is not sustainable. Balance is very fragile and cannot be really our primary focus because it would require too much energy instead of allowing us to focus on what really matters in the end, right? So for human beings and for the human mind in general, living in extremes, it's a much better and simpler alternative if you want. It is simpler also because it requires less energy. To go to an extreme, to be, for example, if we take work, being a hard worker or being very lazy is in a way both, there are both in a way easy options. For the person who is hardworking and becoming with this kind of sustained level of intensity addicted to the work itself, right? The workaholism, as it's known as a concept, for people who become workaholics, is to sustain that workaholism as easy as it is for someone who be very lazy. They are both in the extremes. And this is much easier thing to do for a mind who is used with a certain state. That's why balance is much more complicated, because it requires something in the middle. It requires some sort of active maintenance. I don't want to be lazy, but I also don't want to work that much. And forcing yourself to be somewhere in the middle is very difficult. Um, that's why most people default to either of these two states, right? So the problem with being in the extremes is also that you tend to neglect other responsibilities and areas of life that are important to you and you should be responsible for. And being in an extreme with time becomes some sort of a personality trait. It becomes our nature. I am like that. And because I am like that, there is nothing I can do about it. So living into some sort of an extreme is easier for us also to defend our nature against, against others. And believe it or not, even being lazy can be carried as a badge of honor, right? I I don't care, right? You can go into the extreme of laziness as saying that I don't care about this stuff, right? Um, Whereas going into the other extreme of working, for example, 18 hours a day, you can say that this is who I am. This is what I have to do. But most people have also like other responsibilities that for sure they are neglecting if they are living in the extremes. If you are very lazy, for sure you are not taking care of the normal day-to-day activities, right? You are, maybe if you are a parent, you are not really doing everything that you can to make your family life as best as you can and serve your family members in the best way possible. If you are at the extreme and your family doesn't see you at all because you are always working, that's your default and that's easy for you, but it's not easy on the people who have to carry the burden of not benefiting from your help ultimately, right? Because you are always working. And always working is a good thing to use as an excuse for not being available for other responsibilities because you are productive, right? You are doing things which on top are also rewarded by the society. There are few people who are blamed for their obsession with work, but of course no one sees the collateral victims. No one sees the struggle that the children of such a person go through for not being able to enjoy the presence of their parents. And as a parent, this is an area of concern for me because I have to be careful about it. um, I developed myself some sort of an area of what I call gentle obsession, right? It's not that I'm consumed completely about it by it, but I have to be careful, because if I am not careful about caring about my passion and becoming ultimately the kind of person that is the best model for the people that I want to influence in my life, I am basically negating the very purpose for why I'm doing this. And if you are new to this channel, and maybe if it's the first video that you've seen with me, my obsession is about becoming a better person so that I can serve the others to the best of my abilities. So I can present to the people that I love and I care about, and I can influence positively a better, slightly better, and improved version of myself, right? I want to lead by example. I want to default to showing what I would like the people I want to influence positively to embody, instead of me talking to them, instead of me giving them advice, instead of me trying to force some sort of a good outcome as I perceive it. I want to embody the kind of the kind of person that my children should look up to, right? And I'm responsible for doing that. And because I carry this responsibility, I take it on myself to not be complacent, and at the same time not be completely consumed about this goal, even if it's a purposeful goal. For them, it's much more important that I am with them all the time and give them my full attention, instead of me listening to a podcast that can improve my emotional state or might teach me a certain skill that I want to learn. There is always this kind of balance that ultimately, again, I don't think exists, and I struggled a lot to find a better alternative to the word balance. And after years and years of introspection, I came to another concept, which is a bit more technical. I have a technical background, so it was intuitive for me. And that concept is integration. So instead of finding a balance that you have always to maintain and to be careful for not ruining it, um, I find it much more interesting to think of integrating all the areas of your life which are most valuable to you, right? This is what I'm trying to do. And this is like a discussion about what ultimately matters to you in life. This is a discussion about values, about how you want to structure the day and allocate your energy and your time, so that at the end of the day, even if you might be tired, you are happy with how the day unfolded and how you behaved in the world and the activities that you did and how you feel about yourself while doing those activities. So instead of seeking balance, I argue that you should seek to integrate everything that is important to you in the structure of an ideal day, or rather, in the structure of an ordinary day, but in an ideal life that you would like to live. Because an ideal day is something that maybe happens once in a lifetime, but an ideal life, it's something that you can start building now. And once you have it, a simple day in that ideal life is much better than the best day in a life that you did not consciously craft yourself. So I to just wrap everything into this into this concept of a conscious integration of things that are important to you. I came across recently um, on the concept of essentialism. I only knew about minimalism, like less is more. The mantra of minimalism is less is more. So do less things, have less clothes, and so on. But essentialism is something much deeper and much more valuable to implement as a life philosophy. Essentialism has the mantra less but better. Do more of what really matters to you and do those things much better than anything else. So it's interesting because you might be in a season of your life, or you might have reached already certain levels of success, and despite external praise and social, acclaim and status or whatever, you don't necessarily feel that the way your life unfolds day by day is very meaningful to you. And I've been in such a place in my life a few years ago. And I realized that having success, reaching a certain position at work, or having a certain amount of income is not in itself enough to guarantee a life of everyday fulfillment. And because life is just what happens every day, not just a certain highlight or a certain milestone or a certain goal that we unblock 3 years 5 years from now. Life is about enjoying as much as possible from every single day that you get the chance to live. So I became rather obsessive about finding a way to make the most out of my everyday life instead of trying to chase the next thing, just to give me the kind of comfort and of peace of mind that I would not be able otherwise to get, right? Um, so I came across this concept of essentialism, and it forced me to basically choose what I care most about. Again, it's a discussion about values, but it forces you to choose those things that you feel grateful even for being allowed or able to do. And you will know when you find those things when they feel effortless. And I was saying before that what you are currently doing and what you are really very good at, what allowed you to build the kind of success that you have today in your life, might not be necessarily what you want to carry with you for the next 20 years or 30 years, right? What really matters to you might not be really the things that you are good at. And that could be for all sorts of reasons, right? But an obvious reason why that might be the case is that along the way, throughout your development, you didn't take conscious decisions about what is actually important to you. What would you really want to invest time and energy in? And you chose a certain specialization when you went to the college, to university, had a certain degree just because maybe your friends told you to do so, or maybe it was like a university that your parents recommended you to go to, and so on. But you never felt that this is really what you are drawn to do in your life, right? And that's absolutely normal, because when you are 18 or even 20 or even 25, it's very difficult to settle on something and know that that thing is what you want to do for the rest of your life, right? But as years pass, you are forced somehow by the nature of your evolution to start to think deeply about what matters to you, to start to ask of yourself deeper questions. Is my trajectory, it's my past up to this point confirming me what I want to develop further? Do I want to invest energy in building whatever I've built so far? And for most people, if they are truly honest with themselves, the answer is no. Or at least it's maybe not. But even having this kind of courage to be willing to listen genuinely for yourself, not in front of others, to these questions. It's not easy, right? um, it's not easy to start investigating at a later stage in your life different avenues, different passions, where it's not obvious how you can integrate and leverage all your previous expertise that built you up to that point, and that expertise which allowed you ultimately to have the kind of success that you enjoy at this point, and the kind of success that created everything that you have in your life, and represent ultimately the foundation of stability for your family. um, at the same time, if you are also true to yourself, you will realize that you really don't have a choice. Um, if you give yourself the chance to actually listen to the answer to the question, is this really what I want to do from now on? If you are willing to answer to that question, to the answer on that question, you might not have a choice, right? Um, and I argue that it's much better to give yourself the chance to explore this when you are 30, even 40, even 45, than to wait and try to push back on that voice which tells you that you're not in full integrity or congruence with what you care deeply about. And wait for when you are 50 or 60 or 70 to have to confront the fact that you didn't live life in the way that you wanted to live it. And for sure, what works for me, at least, as a trick, as a mind trick, as an exercise, to have the courage to even have this kind of discussions with you, is that the kind is that I can imagine the pain and the kind of regrets that I would have to confront 20 or 30 years downstream from not being true to myself when I knew I can start being true to myself. Um, and no matter of, I mean, no amount of security or stability or anything will compensate for the suffering that you will have to go through from knowing ultimately that you cannot buy back time. There is no amount of money that you can pay now to relive your life, and that you only had one chance. And I know it's scary, but at the same time, you only have one life, right? And I think it's a moral obligation, and ultimately, um, our responsibility to find that one thing that we feel called to do, with which we can also help others in this life. And this is my quest. This is my own quest. I don't know what's your personal quest, but I feel drawn to helping others find their own mission in life. I found it. I found it even if, it was late in my life, when I was 35, I would say, or slightly younger. I'm 36 now, but things became very clear for me only after the passing of my mother, which was in December 2023. Up to that point, I was on a deep inner journey of self discovery, and it was a rather complicated journey. It was confusing at times. It was frustrating. It was lonely as well, irrespective of the amount of support that I had from my family, my wife, my father, everyone around me. I was suffering deeply, and I didn't know anything but going deep within to basically try to avoid, the external circumstances. And luckily for me, what I discovered was myself, which sounds strange, but um, I never expected to find in myself things that I was basically not very familiar with. And when I started this journey back in 2019, I for sure didn't want to go on it. I was forced again by the crisis, um, by my life crisis, to go within. But along the way, I discovered so many great things about myself that now I feel really compelled to share my lessons with people um, who are on a similar journey than me, and who are in a situation where they are just they're just feeling that there is something missing, right? And there are a lot of people who are in that situation. And I know I'm not that special. That's why I feel motivated to put myself out there, to share my message, my story, and make myself available for those of you who might be in a similar situation, right? Because again, ultimately, there is no benefit in becoming successful, in having all sorts of material possessions in life, if along the way you lose yourself, if along the way you become unhappy with who you are. And there is a lot of pain in that journey also. So I know that if I would not have been in this kind of internal, like intrinsic personal journey, I would have suffered in a different way. I would have suffered because I would have started to become less and less happy with who I am. And I would have started anyway at some point in my life to ask this kind of questions of myself. Is this what I want to pursue in my life? Is this how I want to still continue to serve people in my life? And I didn't feel like my service is that tangible for people. I didn't feel that I can really help people with my background in technology. And while I love technology and I still continue to be passionate about technology, I know that helping people in a more direct way in their own personal evolution is something which is much more rewarding. That's why I'm passionate about transformational coaching. That's why I am passionate about helping others discover themselves and their own mission and purpose in life. And if not only for them, for the people that they would get the chance to touch in a much more positive way, for all the people around them who would get to benefit from a much better and improved version of themselves. Because again, I don't think there is a much better win-win approach to living life than giving yourself to others in the best way you can. And because you improve yourself for others, well, you improve yourself also. But it's not the primary reason why you do it. You do it primarily as a selfless service for those you care about. And because you honor them like this, you implicitly get to grow, right? So think about this alternative to balance. Think about those things that matter most to you, prioritize them, allocate energy and time in building them, in growing them, and you will see that what seemed like you know an effort maybe before now becomes effortless. Now days pass in a way where no matter how tired you are, you can feel proud about your contribution, and you can look yourself in the mirror and be content with what you did in that day. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you want any personalized guidance, just feel free to check the link in the description, book a free coaching call with me, and I'd be more than happy to help in the best way I can. Until next time, take care.